Adam West, a true Hollywood legend and beloved icon, and despite the fact that his claim to fame was playing Batman, arguably the most popular superhero of all time, these days it seems like just as many people associate him with his role on Family Guy. Playing an exaggerated version of himself, Adam West was Quahog's mayor for 17 seasons until his death in 2017, and to countless fans of the series, he is one of the most iconic characters on the cast. With his quirky antics and incredible Westian line deliveries, it's hard not to love the absurdity of Quahog's mayor, particularly because he was born out of West's own mannerisms and personality. So let's take an unreasonably thorough deep dive into Family Guy's mayor, Adam Wee.
My name isn't Adam Wee. Or is it? Who am I? What number did you dial? Don't ever call here again. This is how we did that. Bet you didn't know.
Adam West wasn't introduced as Quahog's quirky mayor until season 2's 15 Minutes of Shame, and I think pretty fittingly, in this one he recounts the story of Quahog's origins. An odd tale of how Quahog's founder, Miles Chatterbox Musket, was thrown overboard en route to the New World, was saved by a magic clam, and then lived with said magic clam in a cabin. Of course, this ended in a tragic breakup. West commemorates this annually on Quahog's Clam Day, the very day Miles would wait at shore for the clam to return.
What's that? Something out at sea? Clam ho!
To me, this is a pretty great introduction for the character, illustrating not just how invested the man can get in this kind of absurd tale, but also how seriously he takes his position as mayor, and of course showcasing Adam West's trademark comedic delivery. But all things considered, it's a pretty unceremonious introduction. At the time, Family Guy was a scrappy little adult animated series barely making renewal, and it feels like a lot of shows would have opted to introduce this kind of celebrity cast member with a focused episode. But I actually really appreciate the writer's restraint, because ultimately Seth MacFarlane and the writers knew that for Mayor Adam West, a little goes a long way. But why Adam West? Why does he play himself? How the hell did MacFarlane even come to this kind of casting or creative decision? Well, the core of it is that Adam West is hilarious. He's obviously best known for playing Batman in the 60s TV show, and while many Batman fans lament this version for being so campy and corny, the reality is that the show was a comedy, and it would not have worked without West.
We've come a long way from the Prime Minister's exploding cake. Or have we?
And other comedy minds understood this and tried to harness it as well. Conan O'Brien, for instance, co-created a pilot starring West in the early 90s called Look Well, a hilarious pilot if you've never seen it, about a washed-up actor who believes that his experience as a TV action hero are enough for him to help actual law enforcement solve real crimes.
This was given to me in 1972.
Presented to Ty Lookwell, TV's Brannigan.
Bannigan. Hugh O'Brien was Brannigan.
Who's Hugh O'Brien?
Exactly.
It's a great premise, and West is very funny in the part, despite the fact that it never went to series. But even this was, at the time, poking fun at West's acting reputation and using his well-known quirks for comedic effect. Even some of those real-life quirks make for pretty hilarious stories. On his podcast, Conan recounted inviting West to dinner after the network had ordered their Lookwell pilot.
And he went, "I'd love to, gentlemen, but I'm very busy. I have big plans tonight." We were like, "Oh, okay, Mr. West, no problem." And then Robert and I went down to the hotel to get dinner, and we saw him sitting alone. He saw us and gave like a little nod. He wasn't even ashamed. "You didn't think I'd really have dinner with you, did you?"
But West wouldn't cross paths with MacFarlane until a few years later, through an episode of Johnny Bravo titled Johnny Bravo Meets Adam West. Fitting, of course. And the episode was co-written by MacFarlane, as well as some other guy. We don't talk about that guy.
We had Adam West as a guest on the show, and he was so funny that I thought at some point I got to put this guy in something because he's just hilarious as himself.
And because of this, MacFarlane did attempt to make an Adam West show pilot, one that went relatively far into development, it seems. And even MacFarlane's stories about this process pretty brilliantly illustrate why West was the guy to build a show around. This story of Seth trying and failing to reach Adam for like a week or two is incredible.
We finally reached him at home, and we said, "Adam, gosh, we finally got a hold of you. It's like trying to reach the Pentagon." And he goes, well, boys, our nation's security is my top concern.
And besides the maybe too obvious fact that the man was simply very funny, he also had a great sense of humor about himself. He knew that he had a unique and storied career that arguably peaked in the 60s, and by playing characters like Lookwell, or this exaggerated version of himself that was the mayor of an animated town, he was willing to make fun of his own eccentricities.
You know, I play it as an extension or exaggeration of myself, having a sense of humor about yourself, you know, not taking myself too seriously, and that certainly is what it was with Family Guy.
Ultimately, casting Adam West as himself was not a decision many people would have made, but it proved to be one of the best moves Family Guy could have made. Because what started as a few small cameos in like 4 episodes of their second season turned into a beloved character that spanned 16 seasons and well over 100 episodes. And over that time, we learned so much about this bizarre fictional version of Adam West, and I guess there's no better place to start than his actual role in Quahog.
Without questions, we just have answers. And an answer without a question is a statement.
Now, while I did say that Adam West takes his job seriously and has a genuine commitment to his role as mayor, that doesn't mean he has competence. West's tenure as the leader of Quahog is riddled with scandal, confusing decision-making, and even outright abuse of power, often all 3 at once. Outside of his debut telling the Magic Clam story, we first see him in action in his mayoral duties in his second appearance in E Peterbus Unum, when Peter goes to City Hall to get a permit for his pool. Why the mayor himself is handling permitting is anyone's guess. But this gives us a really good look at how Mayor West acts in City Hall right off the bat. He initially ambushes Peter because he thinks he's the district attorney. I guess this could suggest that the mayor may be actively being prosecuted for something, or maybe just that he has personal beef with his coworker. Again, this is also anyone's guess. This is when they discover the Griffin property technically isn't even a part of the United States, in response to which the mayor calls Peter a communist and drops him into his malcontent trapdoor.
Would you come back in a week when my fat malcontent trapdoor will be completed?
He also moderates the negotiations between the United States and Pretoria at the end of that episode, so it seems like he wears a lot of bureaucratic hats. In his next appearance, we get our first really strong look at how some of West's more concerning behavior affects his ability to govern. In this one, Meg wants to interview the mayor for her paper, which initially proves difficult.
You can't interview a dead man, can you?
When Meg does eventually get the interview, she has a really hard time finding literally any of his answers compelling until he reveals that he believes somebody is stealing his water because it disappears when it goes down the drain.
I've been investigating him for months. It's cost $150,000 of the taxpayers' money, but I'll find the culprits if it costs me $1 million.
Obviously revealing just a massive misuse of government funds, full-on corruption fueled by the mayor's delusion. But my favorite part is that West isn't concerned about being outed for his ineptitude. He's more concerned that if she runs this story, the investigation will be compromised and he'll never learn who is stealing his water. Mayor West is nuts, but he is kind of nuanced. Of course, this story is never run for classic Peter Griffin reasons, and the mayor doesn't ever have to answer for his actions. And there is plenty of corruption in Mayor West's City Hall. In the very next episode, he tries to bribe a bottle of beer with a government position.
You give me the scroll, and I make you head of sanitation services for the entire city.
It's interesting. Despite there being so many clear cases of corruption, abuse of power, and straight-up incompetence from Mayor West, the citizens of Quahog very rarely try to do anything about it. Maybe the best instance of actual pushback comes in season 4, after West uses a huge chunk of the city budget for a solid gold statue of the Sugar Smacks frog, claiming it's to commemorate Quahog's soldiers.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to announce extreme budget cutbacks having almost nothing to do with this solid gold statue.
This leads to full-on protests demanding Mayor West's impeachment. This is where we see West partake in some classic, shady political tactics, opting to ban gay marriage as a distraction from this scandal. By the end of the episode, he tears up the gay marriage bill because it did all sufficiently distract, which goes to show that West doesn't have a ton of actual conviction in some of these beliefs. He had absolutely no genuine opinion on gay marriage and just used it as a bargaining chip and tool to get himself out of hot water. This actually isn't the only time we see West change course at even the slightest suggestion. In season 7, after Brian does a big pro-weed song and dance number, West immediately responds in kind.
As mayor of Quahog, I hereby sign into law the legalization of marijuana.
But then, by the end of the episode, when Brian changes course, all he has to do is sing West another anti-weed song and dance, and the mayor also changes course back.
I've heard all I need to make an informed decision. Marijuana is hereby re-illegalized.
In season 15, a handful of townsfolk were upset to learn that the sledding hill had been closed down entirely due to its danger level.
Too many pansy-ass parents sue the city when their kids sprain a finger or crush their skull on a bumper.
Mayor West immediately overturns the ban at the slightest pushback, sleds down the hill himself, and of course smashes his skull on a bumper. Maybe the most impactful instance of West giving into pressure was in season 10 when Peter and much of the town joined the Tea Party to protest the local government. It truly just takes a single attempt to get Mayor West to entirely shut down his administration.
I hereby declare Quahog City government disbanded.
And honestly, Quahog citizens are definitely not wrong to protest their mayor. Like the aforementioned Golden Smack statue debacle, Mayor West is often misappropriating city funds and resources based on his own bizarre interests or delusions, like when he did this while watching Romancing the Stone.
Mayor West has dispatched the entire Quahog police force to Cartagena, Colombia to assist in the rescue of fictional 1984 movie character Elaine Wilder.
One of the most substantial examples of the town becoming fed up with Mayor West is in season 5, when Lois meets with him to try and stop the oil refinery from polluting the lake.
Yeah, I told him it was fine.
What?
And in return, I get free oil for my hair.
I find it particularly funny just how corrupt Mayor West can be for so little in return, but this actually leads to Lois running against West for the mayoral office. As you might expect, he runs a sort of transparently vapid campaign, hires Jimmy Smits to help sway voters, and he's lobbed softball questions during the debate that he answers in circles, relying on his charm and personability over substance.
I'd like to have a beer with him. I'm voting for him.
Though, funny enough, Lois catches on and starts delivering comparably hollow answers.
9/11 was bad.
If you are any kind of fan of Family Guy, you probably realize that Lois was never a good candidate for mayor. She basically succumbs to all of the same types of corruption that West did, in some cases being even more transparently self-serving, since she's far less delusional than West. She literally does exactly what she set out to stop, allowing corporations to dump pollution in the very lake she was initially trying to rescue. In the end, she realizes her hypocrisy and simply gives Adam West his position back.
Hooray! I'm mayor again!
Don't we need to have a whole new election?
West was no stranger to policy change, as we've mentioned many times so far, but I think probably the craziest was in season 14's underaged Peter. In this one, Peter gets incredibly drunk and trashes the library. Instead of just a standard punishment for Peter, like they probably should have pursued, West raises the legal drinking age to 50 years old, making Peter and countless other Quahog residents now underage, technically. A law that, as you might not be surprised to hear, Mayor West himself did not follow. By the end of the episode, they discover that West was buying wine for his wife Carol, who had yet to turn 50, and he's pretty easily blackmailed when the gang gets a photo of them drinking together.
All right, I'll repeal it. But only if you send me and Carol a copy of that picture. We don't have a lot of the two of us together.
So if it isn't clear by now, when it comes to actually being the mayor, Adam West is about as corrupt, inept, and delusional as one can possibly be. Sure, he's mostly very dedicated and shows up for nearly all of his mayoral duties, but it almost feels like the entire town would be better off if he just didn't show up. And the reason for that, if it isn't glaringly obvious, is because Mayor West has more than a few screws loose.
Time to put on my spaghetti hat.
We went over more than a few times where Mayor Adam West let his questionable mental state affect his decision-making as mayor. Hell, he's even replaced himself with very questionable candidates on occasion, like in season 9's And Then There Were Fewer, when he leaves the Mayor-O-Matic 5000 in charge.
Take a letter. Hold my calls. That's a matter for the Parks Department.
And then in season 11, he swaps his mayoral position with a bird?
And the job exchange begins.
Sir, do you want to move ahead on the agreement with the sanitation union?
And I think that this is just an inescapable aspect of Mayor West that we have got to discuss. Because, like, what is going on with that guy? While his first appearance just showed him pretty excitedly telling the story of Quahog's origins, basically the very next appearance hinted that he wasn't quite all there when he attacked Peter thinking he was the district attorney. And the next episode after that, Meg's expose on West's misuse of government funds to track down his stolen water was a clear indication that he is mentally unwell.
Well, thank God she's just a figment of my imagination.
So it's pretty instantly clear within 3 appearances that these aren't just some funny mayoral quirks. This is a fundamental part of his character, and you better believe that these antics also extend to his life as a citizen of Quahog. In season 3, we see him on a date with his own right hand. Family Guy viewer mail number 1 is technically a non-canon story, but I think West's characterization there really holds true. After the Griffins get superpowers from toxic waste, the mayor attempts to gain powers himself so he can save the town.
Mayor West, you have lymphoma.
Oh my.
Probably from rolling around in that toxic waste.
And I mean, you gotta know the guy has some issues when he can't even remember his own name, as displayed in one of his most iconic clips.
Nobody messes with Adam Wee.
Sometimes we see West's loose screws manifest through his loyalty to the people of Quahog, like when Peter and the gang were lost at sea and presumed dead, leading to West getting revenge by stabbing the ocean. Though that very same episode also saw the mayor at odds with Quahog.
So it's a shouting match you want, eh? Well, game on, Quahog. I'm beating you!
When you really take a step back and look at these patterns, Mayor Adam West seems to represent unchecked authority asserted through almost childlike logic. He's not exactly evil, but obviously mentally unfit to run a town. He has no real understanding of how the world operates, and yet has the power to act on his whims and delusions. In I Take Thee Quagmire, he enacts a wildly expensive policy to encase all caskets in concrete because he is personally afraid of zombies.
You'll thank me when no one eats our brains.
During a phone outage, he puts a message in a bottle and just sets it down on the table. He seems to vaguely understand the idea, but has no grasp in how or why a message in a bottle would work or would be used. Whether it be in his personal life or his duties as mayor, Adam West clearly struggles to distinguish between tangible solutions and pure fantasy. Obviously, most of Adam West's antics are random gags for the audience. He is more of a caricature than a character. But through the randomness, the mayor basically behaves like a child given actual adult responsibilities and power. In Road to the North Pole, he wants a Tinker toy for Christmas, has stickers plastered all over his bed, and ends up with a ball and a cup toy by the end of the episode. The other adults in Quahog all want pretty grown-up things for Christmas, but Adam just wants to play with toys. It's also implied that he might still live with his parents, emphasized in Baby You Knock Me Out, where he invites everyone to a celebratory kegger.
You can tell your parents that my parents will be there. But they won't be.
And he even gets scared that his parents caught him and calls the whole thing off. I guess this is more like teenage behavior, but still.
Fuck is my parents. The party's off, everybody. Get the fuck out of here.
If you look at moments like these, Mayor West appears to be, in some way, developmentally stunted. While he always appears wacky, his antics make him seem younger in his head than he really is. Like the message in a bottle, he understands ideas without fully grasping the concepts, kind of like a child. When asked how he would spend his money if he won the lottery, he excitedly claims he would splurge on a 4-piece suit. But we see that not only does he not know what a 4-piece suit is, but he thinks it immediately raises his status. He understands the idea of luxury, but not how it actually works or what it means.
I'd like to join your country club. I assume that won't be a problem.
If we fully lean into this childlike, stunted growth angle for West's behavior, you could conclude that his terrible actions as mayor aren't malicious or intentionally corrupt. It's more like he's playing mayor, akin to the way a kid might play house. His blatant corruption and delusion may be coming from a more childish lack of awareness and self-centeredness rather than full-on malice, which obviously doesn't make him any better as a mayor, just offers some explanation. He certainly has childlike tendencies.
Are you afraid of the dark?
I thought we had an understanding that the dark was off limits. This press conference is over.
He is, however, incredibly flexible when it comes to right and wrong, as we've discussed. And much like a child, he may not be purposefully causing harm most of the time, but he is very concerned about not getting in trouble. Like, imagine a kid who spilled juice on the couch or flung a Wii remote at the television. Many younger kids might lie, run away, or make up an elaborate story to get out of trouble. And this kind of sounds like Adam West. He's got a real unwillingness to accept accountability for his wrongdoings, intentional or not.
You are the turkey I have chosen to pardon. Fly free, turkey. Oh, fudgesicles.
Now, with that potential explanation for West's behavior out of the way, there is another potential contradictory explanation coming at us thanks to a major revelation in the episode Dr. C and the Women, where we get a pretty grim theory highlighting Adam West's true nature. In the episode, Cleveland becomes a therapist, with Adam West being one of his clients. Cleveland hypothesizes that Adam West is 100% aware of his shenanigans, that he does odd and kooky things as a front to mask darker, more sinister intent and violent criminal activity.
You are 100% aware of what you're doing. I think you're a dangerous sociopath.
And you know what? Adam West straight up confirms Cleveland's suspicions here.
You're absolutely f***ing right. Well, time to put on my spaghetti hat.
Now, obviously, his own confirmation that this is the case could just be seen as further delusion from the mayor, given, well, all of his other behavior. But let's entertain the idea for a minute. This would suggest that West isn't just incompetent, he actually may be one of the most evil characters in the show on the down low. In the same episode, we see that he confesses to Cleveland that he killed 9 people, but immediately plays it off as a joke when he realizes they're not alone in the room. Further evidence that Adam West may be that sociopath masquerading as a goofy idiot. I mean, at least he's actively seeking therapy to work on it, I guess. The angle that he's been faking his random demeanor this whole time is interesting because we as the audience have seen him act strange and childish behind closed doors on plenty of occasions, implying his quirky side isn't just for show, but actually a genuine part of his personality. Either that or he's just really dedicated to method acting and tries his best to stay in character even when nobody is watching. We can't completely blame Mayor West though. I mean, at the end of the day, the people of Quahog kinda keep enabling him. He leads angry mobs, licks himself, uses fruit as a means of self-defense, and for the most part, does nothing to contribute to making Quahog a better place to live. It's kind of just pointless, unhinged hijinks with this guy at all times. And as far as we can tell, nobody but Cleveland has attempted to unravel the dark truth that lurks underneath it all. Cleveland and me, I guess. This revelation could also color how we see another major Mayor West episode, 12 and a Half Angry Men, in which West is put on trial for the murder of one of the mayor's aides, with a strong case against him. Evidence included a note threatening to unveil West's corruption, the victim was stabbed with a knife belonging to West, and there was also one eyewitness. This episode is one of the most prominent times we see the people of Quahog, namely jury members, outwardly expressing concern about how West has been running things.
Mayor West is crazy. He should have been locked up a long time ago.
Now, ultimately, the eyewitness testimony was disproven, and West was found not guilty, but the way the episode resolves doesn't really absolve him of the crime. They simply had enough reasonable doubt that they couldn't convict him. They don't ever actually find the real culprit. It still could have been West. And if you take into account those sociopathic tendencies, these theories might feed into each other. And, you know, I guess there's also the fact that we've straight up seen him commit murder on multiple other occasions without any repercussions. But there's one other potential explanation for West's behavior, and it comes from season 8. In Spies Reminiscent of Us, a bizarre episode where Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd come to Quahog to track down a spy, we learn that Mayor Adam West is a Russian sleeper agent, a full-on Manchurian Candidate Winter Soldier situation, complete with activation phrase.
Gosh, that Italian family at the next table sure is quiet.
West
ends up fleeing back to Russia to activate a missile. It's a whole thing. So Mayor Adam West was also a Cold War sleeper spy that had simply not been reactivated for decades. And West himself seemed to be completely unaware of this. When he's deactivated, he just jumps right back into the conversation they were having at Town Hall when he was initially activated.
Anyway, I'd be happy to help you conduct a search of Quahog and find
Now, obviously, we can't suggest that West's wacky behavior simply takes place while he's winter soldiering, but I think we can probably deduce that the process of turning somebody into a winter soldier probably not great for their brain. Is it possible that the Russian brain surgery is the culprit for either A, West's childlike tendencies, B, his sociopathic tendencies, or C, all of the above? Who's to say? Despite his obvious flaws, Mayor West just keeps getting elected, completely dodging any sense of accountability. And based on our investigation, this either means an entire town continues to elect basically a child in an adult man's body, a guy who is completely aware of how his antics are perceived and is using it as a front to hide darker tendencies, or a winter soldier. So to answer the question, is Mayor West okay? I mean, obviously not. Whether you subscribe to the stunted growth or sociopathic angle, that dude is not okay. He's more not okay than I think anyone could have guessed. And it's a miracle that Quahog functions as a town on literally any level under his leadership. And not only has his behavior not stopped him from being the mayor, but it also hasn't slowed down his relatively active love life, which, like everything with Mayor West, is very questionable.
I want to make this a night you'll never forget.
This part of Mayor West's life may be the area that has the most meat on the bones. While there may not be as many instances of Adam West's love life as there are of his unadulterated insanity, they definitely give a lot more to chew on in terms of who this guy is as a character. Some of those things give him more nuance and add layered empathy to the character. Others are, well, indefensible crimes, frankly. The yikest of yikes imaginable. But the first time we see Mayor West in any sort of romantic or sexual situation was in just his third appearance, when Meg was trying to publish that expose on his misuse of town funds over quote-unquote stolen water. Ultimately, Peter replaced Meg's story with one claiming Luke Perry is gay, which all culminates in this final scene where Mayor West actually sleeps with Luke Perry.
If I do this, you promise to stop stealing my water?
Obviously, this is less of a voluntary romantic scenario since the mayor is trying to recover his stolen water, but I think it's definitely worth noting as our first instance. But in season 3, we actually see Adam West on a clear-cut, unambiguous date with his own right hand.
You are a filthy whore.
I guess this is also technically Mayor West's first marriage, that we know of at least. And though the mayor dating his own right hand might seem borderline scandalous in a way that could make headlines, oh boy, you have not heard the least of it, because Mayor West's next relationship is by far the least defensible thing in this entire video. You might be asking, what could he have possibly done? What deranged, morally bankrupt, indefensible act could Mayor Adam West possibly have done in his dating life? Meg. It's Meg. He dates Meg. And no, this is not a Meg sucks joke. She was 17 years old when this took place. Now, before we get into the disgusting weeds on this one, we should point out this kind of edgy and shocking storyline was par for the course for the series for a long time. This was only season 4, but I would say that this was when a lot of their edgier tendencies started taking hold. And because of a lot of the stories in that middle chunk of seasons of the show, you would be hard-pressed to find any character that hasn't done something unforgivable or heinous. Honestly, incest, pedophilia, abhorrent violence, all of this stuff was just incredibly pervasive in the series, mostly in the name of shock humor. So really, if you ever want to have any kind of fond feelings for a Family Guy character, you kind of have to ignore some of the more egregious things that happen like this, because otherwise, there is nothing to like about any of them. That being said, this episode plot is fucking crazy, dude. Meg gets an internship at Mayor West's office. His interview consists entirely of a word association game using only the words mosquito and bite. That's it. No qualifications, and Meg gets the job immediately. Eventually, Brian storms into the mayor's office furious over a parking ticket, and Meg, without hesitation, jumps to defend Adam West. Brian, who at this point in the show is still somewhat a voice of reason, for now, we'll get there, has a valid bone to pick with Adam West. He may not fully grasp just how deeply unwell Mayor West is, but he does recognize that he's an incompetent, unjust, and corrupt mayor. So Brian decides he needs to expose him to the town. We also get one of West's darker moments here. He brutally kills the Noid. Now this is just a nostalgic gag, obviously, but the speed and ease with which he overpowers him and snaps his neck might hit a little differently if you subscribe to that sociopath angle we talked about. Brian tries to get the dirt on Mayor West, and through this investigation, he and Stewie discover he's having a secret secret meeting at a motel. They stake it out only to discover that Adam West is of course meeting with Meg. Once again, yikes. It's an obvious scandal for Brian's expose, complete with a romantic dinner.
I really have a great time when I'm with you.
Oh, Mayor West, I feel exactly the same way.
It's gross to say the least. Brian confronts Meg, who tips off the mayor, and then we get confirmation that technically nothing sexual has happened yet. West insists that he wanted to wait until Meg was 18, or 21, or 25 when she can rent a car. So the writers really wanted us to know that the mayor isn't a pedo, he's just a groomer. Though we had already seen them kiss, so not great. And then we get to the conclusion, and oh boy, Adam West insists that if anything comes to light, that he'll take the fall. He talks about how Meg has her whole life ahead of her and how he doesn't want to see that ruined. This isn't played as a joke, and Adam is almost framed as somewhat of a good guy here for doing this. Like there's earnest emotional music swelling and everything. West's decision is painted as a noble sacrifice. It is fucking crazy, dude. And to make it all worse, Brian has been watching the whole time and feels guilty? This whole thing is wild. Adam framing this as taking the fall makes no sense. Meg hasn't done anything immoral. West is the only person in the wrong, and yet the episode bends over backwards to make him look sympathetic and selfless. Brian, despite having all the proof he needs, ultimately decides not to publish the story, even apologizing for going the lengths that he did.
I got so caught up in taking down Mayor West that I just lost sight of right and wrong.
So, was this the exact moment when Brian stopped being the voice of reason? Cause Jesus Christ. Family Guy would later revisit a similar kind of broken moral logic with Brian and Meg again, but that's a whole other disaster, maybe for a future video. And obviously this resolution is absolutely baffling. It actively misunderstands who the victim is and asks the audience to feel sympathy for the wrong person, and not in an edgy, comedic Family Guy kind of way either. The ending is played really straight. It is not very good, and some of the developments later in the series make this even weirder. In season 8, there's a bit where the entire town comes to the Griffins because they're all shocked that somebody could possibly like Meg, and Adam West can actually be seen in that shocked crowd despite the fact that he himself dated Meg, which is even stranger since apparently their relationship had not completely stopped.
Meg?
Yeah, this still happens sometimes.
This was in season 9, and Meg did not turn 18 until the following season, by the way. And literally one episode after this is when Mayor West meets his future wife and Lois's sister, Carol, which we'll dive into much more in a moment. But when they get married, it really changes the Meg/West dynamic in a way that feels extra creepy given their past. He effectively becomes her uncle, and she is literally the only one of the Griffin children who acknowledges this, persistently referring to him as Uncle Adam.
Hey, Uncle Adam, how could Uncle Adam do this?
And to add just one more layer of strange, in season 14, Meg vocalizes that she wants to text something to her quote-unquote best friend, and that person turns out to be none other than Mayor Adam West. So yeah, Mayor Adam West is Meg's groomer, uncle, and best friend, in that order. Yeesh. Family Guy. Very normal show. Okay, let's get into Carol though, because this was one of the more interesting status quo shifts in the series. They maybe could have done more with it overall, but it was still interesting. Mayor West meets Lois's sister Carol in season 9, episode 15, Brothers and Sisters. Well, meets her. He actually did have a brief interaction with her back in season 3 when Carol was actively in labor.
Excuse me, I was here first. My leg is asleep.
So, you know, if Carol had remembered this, it may have been a deal breaker, but as it went, Carol and Mayor West actually really hit it off. In this episode, Carol calls the Griffins completely distraught. Her husband had just left her. Unfortunately for her, Peter is the one that answers the phone before Lois.
Jason left me. It's gonna be my 9th divorce.
Yeah, you know, just hanging out.
Carol comes to stay with the Griffins, and she is deeply depressed, as you might expect. We learn that a major reason Carol's relationships never work is her low self-esteem. According to Lois, the moment a man shows even the slightest bit of interest, Carol rushes headfirst into something serious. Enter Mayor Adam West. He shows up at the Griffins' house because he was playing Ding Dog Ditch and forgot to run away. Some may call this a silly and contrived way to get him into the story, but it's also pretty vintage West. Mayor West and Carol are into each other immediately.
Aren't you gonna introduce me to your handsome friend?
Handsome? Wow!
Adam is a straight shooter. He asks Carol out on a date. Lois tries to intervene, pointing out that Carol literally just got divorced. Hell, the divorce was not even finalized yet, and Carol ignores the warning, going out with Adam West. On their date, they take a romantic walk on the beach, and Mayor West is truly, for a lack of better term, a master of riz.
You ever wonder what a seagull tastes like?
Then, mid-date, we get a grim reminder that Adam West is deeply, deeply unwell.
I want to make this a night you'll never forget.
And yeah, Carol kisses him right after this. Carol, girl, please work on your ability to spot red flags. Maybe she's actually just as unwell as Adam? I don't know. They return from the date and Carol is completely smitten. Adam proposes and it's an instant yes after a single date. Lois justifiably scolds Carol for not only jumping into another relationship while still mid-divorce, but for jumping straight into an engagement. Carol insists this is what she wants. I mean, talk about attachment issues. I really love this bit where Peter is thrilled at the idea of having a brother, so he and Adam immediately go ride bikes like children. Again, there's that infantilized version of Mayor West rearing its head. Lois goes far out of her way to try and break up the wedding, throwing Carol's previous husbands in their faces, even inviting some of them to dinner in an attempt to highlight Carol's clear pattern of heartbreak. She finally concedes, storms off in tears, and in a rare moment of sincerity, Adam West also starts to cry over this. They are both devastated. Adam West even decides to flee to Alaska, stepping down as mayor. And after some argumentative discussion with Peter, Lois realizes that Carol was one of the few who supported her marriage to Peter. She starts to feel guilty and ultimately decides to support Carol's decision instead of fighting it. And to be clear here, Adam really is leaving for Alaska. They just managed to get the plane turned around via Quagmire, giving us a classic Hollywood last-minute reunion at the airport. Carol and Adam embrace, and they do, in fact, get married. Now, Family Guy isn't really known for emotional storytelling, but oddly enough, this episode does make you feel for Adam West a little bit, despite everything. His decisions are questionable, Carol's decisions are worse, and yes, there's something uncomfortable about Adam unintentionally preying on someone who is clearly emotionally vulnerable, but this is still Family Guy. It's a goofy cartoon first where gags and bits take priority over characters or lessons. Within that tone, Adam and Carol sort of work, if you ignore the whole Uncle Adam thing, but as a duo in a vacuum, they're both off kilter, just in very different ways, and one way more so than the other. But hey, maybe that means they're perfect for each other. So yeah, in an unusual move for these kinds of adult animated sitcoms, they actually stick with the Adam West x Carol pairing and leave them married for the duration of the show. A rare status quo shift. Though, we can't say that everything was perfect for them from here on out. They both seem to partake in multiple extramarital affairs across their relationship. The first showcased in the episode Valentine's Day in Quahog, when it's revealed that Carol is cheating on West with another mayor. West manages to challenge this other mayor and win Carol back, but not before we got confirmation that this was not Carol's first extramarital affair. Was that pun good? Did that pun work?
Hey, Carol. I almost didn't recognize you without my special sauce all over your face.
It just seems like once Carol got a taste of one mayor, she couldn't help but sample some others. A very weirdly specific preference. West also implies later that Carol continued to cheat.
You realize that kid is plowing both our wives right now.
This one could read more as West delusion, but definitely worth mentioning here, given Carol's history now. But it seems like the mayor was also partaking in a little side action himself. In the 2,000-year-old virgin, West gets a necklace from Rupert, yes, the bear.
I'm gonna let that teddy bear go all the way.
And the very next season, he bragged about this summer trip he went on with his friends.
We went to Lake Havasu, you losers. We nabbed so much college beef.
Outside of this, we don't see a ton about West and Carol's relationship. Adam comes with her to the Griffin Thanksgiving one year. He of course allowed her to break the law when he raised the drinking age to 50, but there wasn't a ton of focus on them overall. Though, when the mayor is accused and put on trial for murder in season 11, we do see Carol in the courtroom for the proceedings, and she sure doesn't seem to show much emotion or concern about the situation. In fact, Meg shows a lot more concern than Carol does, which is still weird, which also begs a few questions. Does Mayor West have friends? Does he have like hobbies? Sort of. Let's talk about it.
Prepare to meet your maker at the hands of my cat launcher.
So we know a lot about Mayor Adam West at this point, primarily through his bizarre tendencies, horrendous public service track record, and frankly, very funny antics. But outside of his work and love life, what does the mayor do? What is his personal life like? Well, we have seen a handful of patterns of interest that pop up over the years, as well as some comedic one-offs.
I love this job more than I love taffy. And I'm a man who enjoys his taffy.
He apparently loves when amateurs sing Journey at karaoke, but he hates baseball cards. And he isn't a huge fan of theater popcorn.
I don't like the cream corn they have here. It's too crunchy.
But as far as those patterns go, there are only a few things that pop up time after time. For one, we see him watch a decent amount of television and movies when he's home. We know he was watching Romancing the Stone when he sent the Quahog police to Colombia. Another time, we see him watching Rodney, King of Queens, scenes.
Oh no, she didn't!
In that very gross Meg episode, he's watching Jem and the holograms in the motel, and then he and Meg later watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He also watches Peter's puppet show in season 10, and rushes to be early at the $1 DVD sale in Brian's Got a Brand New Bag.
Please be here. Oh, sweet mother of God, there you are!
And even aside from just often seeing him consume TVs and movies, he has explicitly stated his fondness for them as well.
Hello, loyal mail woman. This is a letter to Hollywood saying, keep it up. Movies are great.
Another of Mayor West's interests would seemingly go alongside his love for movies and television, and that is, maybe surprisingly, weed. Obviously, we talked about how he legalized and then re-illegalized weed in season 7, but there are a couple instances where he clearly shows interest in using it himself. He was furious that Consuela and Mort wouldn't partake with him in And Then There Were Fewer.
Oh my God, what a couple of squares.
Then, in The Simpsons Guy, he lures Mayor Quimby out of the courthouse to join him.
Are you a cool mayor?
I like to think so.
Not a huge through line, but definitely a pattern and clearly something he enjoyed. You gotta wonder whether this habit actually helped or worsened some of his more obvious psychoses. But I think Mayor West's most random and probably funniest interest has gotta be cats. Not the musical, this guy just seems to love cats.
I only ask that you do not feed my cat Bootsy, as he's already eaten and might throw up.
Though his adoration for cats also manifests in strange ways. When the pizza guy gives him Canadian bacon instead of bacon, he chases him across Quahog with a cat launcher. He does, of course, go back to retrieve every single cat. He's not a monster.
Paul! That's a person's name!
We see firsthand how much West loves cats in season 9's Trading Places. He and Peter are both trying to win a dirt bike by keeping their hand on it the longest.
I just sent you a picture of a kitten in sunglasses.
Well, this I gotta see.
Despite his major flaws, West does occasionally show that softer side. But beyond his interests, does the mayor have any actual friends? Who does he hang out with outside of work? Well, we get our first real glimpse in season 5.
If I order a pizza, will anyone else have some?
I might have a slice.
Well, you know, I'm gonna need more of a commitment than that, Mark.
Okay, just another non sequitur gag, pretty funny, but as far as human friends go, the only real solid example I found was in season 15 when he bid on and won the old Medieval Times building. Once he owns the property, Mayor West spends his time hanging out there with the sea captain, Carl, and Mort.
I checked with my mom and she said it was cool with her if we wanted to sleep here tonight.
This is also pretty funny since Mort was on that jury in West's murder trial, and was the one who specifically said that Mayor West is crazy and should not be mayor. I guess his interest in hanging out in a castle outweighed his opinion there. I actually kind of wish they had explored this weird little foursome of characters more. They would have made a fun foil to the Peter, Cleveland, Joe Quagmire crew, as seen with their rivalry in this episode, though none of West's gang seemed to be too bothered when they accidentally burned down the Medieval Times. Definitely an interesting footnote on West's character history, but maybe something that could have been explored more thoroughly. In fact, I do sort of feel like this section about Mayor West's friends and interests sort of highlights what I've really learned through writing this video. He is kind of barely a character. He is super funny and a great gag machine, and there have been some really great uses of him, but he's more of a caricature than he is somebody with all that much nuance. When you're trying to hyper-analyze the character and derive more nuance from him, you kind of have to do a lot of speculation. There's not that much on the page. But despite this, he is such an important and inextricable part of Family Guy, which ultimately made the loss of the real Adam West hit all the harder.
I got me a West!
On June 9th, 2017, at 88 years old, Adam West passed away. Seth MacFarlane pretty quickly released a statement honoring West. Family Guy has lost its mayor, and I have lost a friend. Adam West was a joy to work with, and the kind of guy you always wanted to be around. His positivity, good nature, and sense of fun were undeniable, and it was always a big jolt of the best kind of energy when he walked in to record the show. He knew comedy, and he knew humanity. I am beyond fortunate to have had the privilege of working with him, and he will be profoundly missed by all of us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you have given, Mr. Mayor. you're irreplaceable. This happened between Family Guy's 15th and 16th seasons, and he had already recorded his 5 episodes for season 16 prior to passing, which meant that thanks to animation workflow time travel, West graced our screens for a solid year after he had already died. And in classic Family Guy fashion, they obviously would reference West's passing and the subsequent retirement of the character in many ways. Some major status quo shifting ways, and of course, pop culture referencing ways. The first allusion to West's death came in No Giggity No Doubt with a classic Star Wars reference.
That can only mean show ghosts.
Over the 2 seasons following West's death, there were a few other pop culture references as well. Season 18's cat fight had Peter capturing the ghost of Mayor West in a proton pack a la Ghostbusters, pretty fun ref. And then in Coma Guy, we see a whole cruise ship full of dead characters from the show, including West himself. But there are 2 major episodes and status quo shifts that went a long way to honor not just Adam West's character, but his legacy in Family Guy. In season 17's Adam West High, you might not be surprised to learn that Quahog changes the name of their high school from James Woods High to Adam West High, a move I love, and not just because James Woods totally sucks, but also because it's a way to honor West that completely makes sense in universe as well. The episode starts out with a major memorial to West, and I can't think of a better salute than what they went with here.
We will start today's ceremony with the traditional 21 cat launcher salute to honor our wacky but beloved mayor.
Obviously, with adult animated sitcoms, status quo changes are few and far between, and implementing one in honor of West's years of goofy-ass line deliveries feels like the absolute best move. Unfortunately, the rest of this episode wasn't particularly interesting or Mayor West focused, pitting Quagmire and Brian against each other as they run to be the new mayor of Quahog, but I guess the result did showcase that Adam West is not remotely easy to replace. The episode credits conclude with an in memoriam for West with one of my absolute favorite tributes, a rendition of the Family Guy theme styled after the old Batman theme song. This is really good stuff here. But the funny thing is, after not replacing West as mayor in this episode, the show would largely ignore that hole in the town infrastructure for a couple more seasons. The writers simply struggled to figure out exactly how to replace such an iconic character and singular voice for the role. A lot of fans and writers suggested bringing in a different retired Batman, which was eventually referenced.
Just get a former Batman and move on. I'm sure Val Kilmer could use the insurance.
But in season 19, they rightfully, I think, opted to go an entirely different direction, bringing in a mayor that not only has an incredibly different vibe and style than Adam West, but one that still honors him in name. And I mean, this is a very silly resolution, but they bring in Adam West's cousin.
Wild West. You guys don't know Wild West?
No, and please don't diminish us for not knowing the same things you know.
I think off the rip, it would be easy to see this as a pretty half-baked joke and idea, but in execution, man, it just really works. Wild West is played by Sam Elliott, obviously one of the greatest voices in Hollywood history.
Beautiful country, Duluth. The air moves into your nostrils like a welcome guest.
Honestly, this ends up being such a great decision. They go the complete opposite direction of Adam West. Instead of those Westian line deliveries that are so silly and iconic, they go with old Western line deliveries that are also differently iconic. If they had tried to bring in someone who was comparably as wacky as Adam West himself, that character just never would have lived up. So instead, they go with a rugged badass with the most soothing, gruff voice possible.
My name's Wild West, and I'm here to throw my hat in the ring to be your next mayor.
Now, there's no real reason to get in too deep in the weeds on this episode plot, but ultimately Wild West does become the new mayor, assuring that Quahog will have a Mayor West for years to come. Even years after his passing, Adam West's influence can still be felt in Family Guy to this day. And how could it not? Sure, he may not have been the show's deepest character, but what an amazing legacy. A Hollywood legend standing in as a non-stop gag machine for nearly 2 decades. And he landed the role by being unapologetically himself, to the point where Seth MacFarlane knew that he didn't just want to write a character for West, he wanted to put him in the show as himself. It's hard to think of a better way to honor Adam West than to make one of his most iconic roles Adam West. Now, join me as we sing the man out.
Adam West, Adam West. A little bit softer now. Adam West, Adam West. Adam West, Adam West.
Johnny!
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.